Welcome to the Extreme Cinema Podcast. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
Excuse me.
I'm Alexander Sternberg, and who is this person next to me?
This is Dominic Loach of the Not Evening Review.
Okay, and what are we watching today? What have we watched?
Oh, we were the best film, my favorite of all time. Megan is Missing. The real life documentary.
100% real. It's the infamous Megan is Missing. Infamous as all the Gen Z TikTokers seem to love it. Infamous because it's, extreme, and infamous because it's known as a not very good film and the letterbox ratings are all half stars.
Yeah, exactly. So, Sterny, what did you think of it?
I don't think it's as bad as people say. I think it's bad. I think it's very bad. But it's not an irredeemable film. The acting, for the most part, is irredeemable, and that really drags it down quite considerably. But there are some good ideas in this, lost in the abysmal acting and the abysmal presentation.
Yeah, the main one for me, I think, is the acting. Watching it again, I was like, oh my god. This is some of the worst acting I have ever seen in my entire life. Like,
I will cut. Yeah, go
I
for it.
noticed you gave it 1.5 stars, and I was like, oh, a 3 out of 10. Like, not the one that I give it. I do think it's genuinely horrific.
I will, in the acting level, I will give Rachel Quinn, who played Megan, some credit. She was, for the most part, fine, and when she wasn't fine, it was the script's fault. But everyone else, that is actually irredeemable.
Yeah,
where did he find these people?
I'd probably Craigslist or something. Like,
hey, we need you to cry on camera because your best friend has been kidnapped, and go.
that must have been it. That scene outside the where she's blaming her, where she's like, "It's all your fault," is one of the worst things I've ever seen. Where she looks like she's rapping when she's throwing her arms around. It's amazing.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's just so not believable. And there's kind of moments in the film where for like a minute you kind of start to get into it, and then the acting just throws you right back.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Yeah.
It's because it has that reputation. Obviously, we're talking about extreme cinema. This is the Extreme Cinema Podcast, but so much of this is just high school drama talking about sucking dick for a while. Like,
we'll get into that scene later. That scene is. But if I was just watching this right as a movie, there's no fucking indication this is an exploitation film, which it is until an hour into the film.
Oh yeah.
And like, I don't think it's irredeemable when the photos pop up. Genuinely scary. And the bit that actually fucking, I will admit, scared me quite a bit is when he opens the barrel. Full spoilers. When he opens the barrel and Megan's body's in there, and it's actually quite a good effect. That actually, I was like, oh fuck, that's scary. But then the rest of it's just sort of ruined by the fact it's just so unbelievable. Like the last 20 minutes... It's just the August Underground. It's slightly better than the August Underground, which should clue you in about how bad that movie is when we get round to it. But like,
oh no,
it's so out of place. And Michael Goy, I looked up an interview with him, and he kind of seems like a nice enough bloke, I guess. But he said the movie is too extreme for some people to take seriously or not be judgmental about the motivations behind it, and motivations we'll get into later, but he's right, it is too extreme to be taken seriously. It's an exploitation film, which I think he genuinely means is like a serious wake up, this is real movie.
Yeah, so you do you not think he knew he was even making an exploitation film then? Like,
I don't think so, but it's so weird that it's so weird to me that he didn't realize. But I think he knew he was making an extreme film, but I think he's like being so serious, putting all this torture at the end.
well, yeah, you can tell he's trying to be serious throughout the film, like the way it's presented in this like faux. This really happened, and these are the last 22 minutes of the tape we found and everything. Like it's
The the thing is with the presentation, right, is that structure-wise, it's pretty decent way. I mean, the film was made for $35,000, and I'll give it credit. I would have guessed 100,000 or something. So, credit where credit's due. The budget went the full distance. So, structure-wise, I think it kind of works having these isolated conversations. What doesn't work is this movie set in 2007 and everyone's Skyping all the time and everyone's on their phones all the time. And then you see her phone at one point and it's like a fucking Motorola flip phone.
oh yeah, did you notice that every time they answered like a phone on the call,
Their
their
hands.
hand came back from the phone, yeah. And to hang up, they put the hand over the camera. It was amazing.
It's like any positives is the film are ruined by the fact it's so unbelievable. I mean, the worst scene in the film for me is the party sequence. Like, because before that, I was actually kind of, I mean, the acting was trash, but I was actually kind of into it. And then the party sequence happened for like 10 fucking minutes. And I was just like, wow, this is bad. This is just not a representation of teenagers.
No, not even slightly. And the fact that house is the weirdest house I've ever seen. I have to add, like this house that the party is in.
Like, I guess they had an abandoned house and had a ticketed rave that people were going to with lights and with, like, generic stock metal music, because, you know, that's what the kids were listening to in 2007.
Yeah, it's definitely a what? I don't know how old Michael Guy is, to be fair, but a
60.
60. Oh my god, okay. 60-year-old
funny,
man.
right?
Like,
It's fun,
pretended
right,
to
'cause,
do a
like,
teen movie.
like these, because you're a couple years older than me, but actually no, I guess you kind of would have been this age, closer to this age than I would have in 2007, but I wouldn't have been far off. And it's like, it's amazing. It's like it went out of its way to not properly show people, like the way the dialogue is. Sometimes it's not too bad, but sometimes it's awful. And not like in a way that like Juno is unrealistic, but Juno's kind of going for this style. It's just unrealistic in a kind of cringy way.
Yeah, I think that's I hate to use the word, but cringe is so like just an amazing way to describe what happens in this movie a lot. Like most of the I don't even know how long that first like section is that just
It's like
goes
40
on.
minutes till she goes missing or something.
Yeah, it just doesn't end, and you're like, when is the title happening? Like,
I actually think that's the best bit in the film, though, because Amy and Megan's friendship, it's almost three-dimensional. It doesn't work because individually their characters are so cliched, but the way Megan is really protective of Amy, when it's not being hammered in your face, it actually works quite well.
yeah. I gotta say, because there are like scenes where she's talking to the guy over the Skype call again with like four of them in frame talking to him at first.
Oh, yeah, that's... I mean, because, I guess this film is about, like, online grooming and abuse and whatnot in this, totally serious film that's not an exploitation film. But it's just, like, it's kind of just also unbelievable. Like, when he like, stalks her at this party, and he's like, oh, I saw what you were wearing, but I didn't come up to you. I was too shy. And she's like, no, that's really cute. Let's go meet again. I just thought, no. absolutely not. No character. That's just not
Yeah,
how people function.
absolutely. It was clearly
I
created
mean,
for the cyberbully demographic, like the internet is corrupting our children. Let's all be scared, kind of demographic. Like,
oh, well, I'm glad you brought this up because here's the thing. That's clearly who it was intended for. And in this interview in Entertainment Weekly, Michael Goyce sort of said the film was not intended for teenagers, but the teenagers are always the one who watch it. And I was just thinking, who the fuck else is watching this? It's a teen horror film for like 2/3 of it, and then at the end, it's just really extreme. Like, this is like, I remember the people I used to talk to in school about horror movies and like the horror crowd when we were kind of 13, 14, 15. They, fucking watch anything. And if a certain film from Serbia got people talking at our age, this would easily catch on. Like, I kind of expected to watch this and come on here and go, oh, the TikTokers, am I right? Thinking this is real and, like, enjoying this. I actually, after watching this, I perfectly see why this caught on with, like, 14-year-olds. I really do. It's terrible. But it is, as a bad, extreme horror film that, like, teenage girls will watch, I get it.
yeah, same. I get it, and like you say, Michael Guy says in interviews that it's not made for them. So man completely misunderstood his entire audience. Like, and I think that's going back to the fact that he didn't think he was making this. Obviously, he knew it was extreme because that ending's extreme. But I think he was like, I'm making this extreme to show you how terrible grooming can be and what will happen to your daughter and stuff like this, rather than just be like, this is fucking Hostel or August Underground.
Yes!
Like yeah.
Literally, like, rather than he doesn't think this is torture porn, and it is. And there's no indication the film is going to become torture porn until the end. And that, actually, if this was a good film, the tonal shift could have worked. But because it's not a good film, you just go, well, now we're doing torture, I guess.
Yeah. And it's not that great torture either. It's really badly done, most of it. Like you said, the opening, the what is it? The bucket thing is quite good.
Their friendship, I'd say that's the best part of the films is their friendship.
Oh yeah. But I think most of it is just a terrible tonal shift that doesn't work, acting that doesn't work. Like,
if they had like half decent normal horror movie level acting, I think the film probably could have been like a 5 out of 10. Like, it probably could have been like a perfectly forgettable film, even with the rubbish presentation. But it's like the worst acting I've ever seen. It's dreadful.
Yeah, it is. It does get to Room levels at some point. Like, it is genuinely like laughably bad. Some of the scenes, and you're like, oh no.
My favorite, I think, the moment I was like, well, this is the kind of film we're in, is that bit where, like, it's like 10 minutes in where, like, Megan calls someone. She's like, hey, girl, did you get the stuff this guy got? It was real. That was the moment, because I was kind of into it until then, and that happened. And then it tries to have this quite good scene where, Megan's mum shouting at her, and you can see her home life in, like, quite an organic way, ruined. Absolutely ruined by the fact that in the video call next to them are these actors who, they're just so unbelievable.
Yeah, completely chewing the scenery and like horror and like this should be an effective scene and it's just not. I think we need to talk about Michael Guy more because that man is fascinating. Like, I don't know how much you looked up on him, but like,
I watched his TikTok account. I mean, he for those who don't know, he is like he was or is president of the American Society of Cinematographers, and he's like an acclaimed award-winning cinematographer. And he has like a couple of directing credits, and he's doing like a film with an actual cast next. But this seems to have been his passion project.
yeah, and I think that because this was his passion project has led him to vehemently defend it on the internet to a horrifying degree. Like, obviously, it's his film. He's gonna try and defend it, but there's been like accusations of like false reviews made by him to like
Oh, God.
bolster review site scars, and like he's gone in on like famous internet reviewers. I know he attacked YMS on his
Well,
like
I
quite
want to at
famous
the end of this
review.
get onto YMS's review of it as the kind of
Yeah,
main thing people know this from, or at least people our age tend to know it from. But he's he. I was reading and watching some interviews with him. He strikes me as a very earnest fellow who's fucking blind to some of the to the quality of this work.
yeah, definitely. It's the what would you say, like the Neil Breenism of everything, like completely blind to how
I'd
bad
say this
something
is,
is.
yes. I'd say it's a less absurd Neil Breen.
Yeah, it's not. It's nothing is Neil Breen. Nothing will ever be Neil Breen. But like, it's
Since we're
that.
on to Michael Goy, I want to talk because I don't know if you saw the top review of Letterboxd, because I didn't actually think about this. And in fairness, this is like the only thing I've seen, but the top review of Letterboxd was sort of describing things in the film, particularly the rape scene and the weird fucking dialogue about her having sex with this counselor when she was 10, that I think is clearly meant to be rape, but in the film it doesn't quite come across as that.
Yeah,
And basically saying they think that this is sort of Michael Goy's excuse to... This is what this review is implying, which I'm going to say quite afterward I don't think is fair to say. It kind of implied that Michael Goy's trying to make some sort of pornography for himself in this, and I think when you kind of look at the checklist of stuff in this, you can see the case, but I think it's a very unfair thing to say with only the film as the evidence. I think that's a really unfair thing to put in front of someone. I just have to assume everything in this film was well-intentioned, which is weird because it comes across as weird, but I do think his intentions are good.
Yeah. That is. I didn't see that, and I do think it's a weird accusation to put at someone because I do think his intentions are almost completely good. Like he thought he was making something that was meant to be like this warning kind of thing. I don't think he was making any kind of porn or anything for himself. But like I did mention earlier, there is that one very weird scene that I guess that's just he thinks that's how teenagers talk now, maybe kind of thing.
I have to assume that's what that is. That, like, the weird long story about her experiencing statutory rape when she's not recalling it as such. In an actual good film, you could pull that off, but in this you can't, and it's like head in hands fucking awful to watch that bit.
Well, yeah, to pull it off, you need some kind of like good writing and acting as well to be able to like pull it off believably, which this just does not have. Like
The film, like, it tries to tackle abuse as a theme. Like the scene with the video interview of her, which I think is probably, barring one other scene, which I'll talk about later, I think is probably the best scene in the film, and it kind of does work. But you have this whole film made up of nonsense around it, and it really just, it sells these intentions of making a serious film so short to not only have the exploitation at the end, but to have such fucking awful amateur presentation of the whole thing. Like it's a cheapo horror movie, and I think it's aspiring to be, as we keep saying, it's aspiring to be something more.
yeah, definitely. Can we talk for a bit about the fake news fake news station in it?
The fake news station from 1982, local public
Yes.
access. Like transitions every 5 seconds. It's like when I was 7 messing about with Windows Movie Maker. That's how the shit I would have made looked.
Like that is one of my favorite moments in this film. Just all of the news scenes. I'm not one to usually pick things like this apart in this way, but the fonts that he uses in those scenes.
I didn't even think about that, but It strikes me as like such a that really is Neil Breen levels of incompetence, that scene. However, though, the reenactment bit, I was laughing quite a bit in the complete way it was intended. Like, I have to, like, it's clearly satire on how terrible the news media is. So when they're like, we're gonna reenact this brutal kidnapping because, maybe it will lead to us realizing something the police didn't, I thought that was really quite funny. Like, in the way
Yeah,
intended.
yeah, I do think he like intentionally meant that to be quite horrible. Like,
That, and when the person's talking about Megan for 5 minutes, and it's like, oh, by the way, this kid with the stereotypical black name's also missing. But after the break, more on Megan. I was like, that's decent satire. This is what I mean.
yeah,
That the film is not unsalvageable. It's just these kind of interesting nuggets in this awful film.
yeah, it's like a what Blair Witch 2 kind of thing. It's not like
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, yeah.
has
Blair Witch 2 has a director's cut, like a director re-edit, where the film's kind of slightly more to what it was intended, and it's actually meant to be pretty decent.
maybe we should do a Megan is missing cut. See,
How the hell could you? I mean, because the first thing you do if you're making this good is rehire all the actors, barring Rachel Quinn, essentially.
yeah, just it's just a remake of Megan is missing, but it's called the new cut or something. Like,
But he was approached to do a Mexican remake, and he said no.
seriously,
He doesn't want to go back. Yeah, he can't be bothered to go back. I can imagine a Spanish language remake of it. I can imagine the acting being even worse.
yeah, exactly.
You know who played the news anchor in this?
No?
The mayor from South Park.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
What on earth? What a random factoid. Like,
Because, like, her photo on IMDb is the mayor. And I was like, wait, what? And she does, like, voices on South Park.
that's so random. And to be in Megan is missing. Like, what do you think genuinely of the ending then? Because we kind of touched upon it, but what do you think of it as an ending to a movie in general?
As an ending to... I'll be honest, it's kind of... Okay, the her being tied up is, like, laughable. The rape scene, the 3-minute rape scene is awful. I'm not going to say laughable, but it's, like, so poorly done. It doesn't need to be in the film, and all of that. But like I said, when he opens the barrel, it's Megan's body. It fucking got me. In the end, when he's digging a hole and it just keeps going and she's in the barrel, like, pleading with him, I was like, nope, this is quite scary, actually. And I was kind of left a bit, like, feeling a bit gross afterward in that kind of way you'd want this. So I think it's a mess. It shouldn't have been in this movie. But there are the elements of a decent extreme horror in it.
Yeah, I do actually agree on the most of it is laughably bad, but you get to that ending part, and it did kind of make me feel a little gross in that kind of torture porn esque way that you want for this movie to feel. But again, like we've said so many times, he didn't think he was doing that, which messes it so much. In that this film should have been one or the other. It should have been that great friendship look, and like Amy should have lived the entire thing, and it should have been a look at their friendship and how it affected other people around them, or it should have been a schlocky torture porn that like Megan got captured almost instantly, and like she was trying to escape all the time and stuff like this.
If this was a fucking masterpiece, you could pull this tonal shift off. If Takashi Miike was directing this, you could pull this tonal shift off. But very few directors could pull... Bong Joon-ho, if he wanted to, could. But, like, this is... It's almost certainly setting you up for failure. But this seems to be the thing people like about the film.
Oh yeah, yeah. People seem to. That's the thing. We should probably talk about like the weird fanfare it does have from some facets of the internet, I guess.
Oh, but it's fucking. I mean, there's a reason Michael Goy's on TikTok, and his TikTok account's pretty. I mean, it's an old man with a TikTok account, but like, it's really popular on TikTok, and there's a whole meme where it's like, people being like, "I just watched Megan and Missing. I'm gonna be the next Megan." It's so traumatic, and like I said, I kind of get it. I kind of get why people who are sort of 13, 14, 15, largely teenage girls, would enjoy this film.
Yeah, definitely. And like a lot of these are obviously just rediscovering it now again. Like we heard about it now 8 years ago, I think 7, 8 years ago. So
Dom,
the
this
fact
is officially a cult classic.
Megan is missing. It's gonna be on Criterion next. Like,
uh, I think actually DVD copies do go for like a somewhat decent amount in America because it's out of print.
yeah, I
Like
can imagine so
amazingly.
actually. Yeah, because I know like when we first thought about this film again was because we heard it got big on TikTok again, and people on YouTube who are having to make videos saying this isn't real, this is just a movie. Like, could you imagine watching that and thinking it was real? I'm sorry, right? If you saw that news, that news report,
It's
like,
people believe. I had to tell friends that Blair Witch wasn't real 10 years after. I don't get it, but like, there's just a demographic of people who are all too ready to believe this shit, which is like, people don't act like this. Like, how could you watch any scene from this and not think this is fake? Especially because found footage and it was the biggest thing for a whole decade.
yeah, exactly. What I could have seen genuinely happening is some people maybe thought a lot of it was recreations and then the ending was real. But then you still have the actors in it. So, like, they got really good
The
lookalikes. But
the ending's so easy to do, man. That's fucking cheap shit. Like, yeah, you film a dark, dingy dungeon, found footage, torture, and rape, and people are going to be disturbed by it. I
yeah,
think there's some
exactly.
effective moments in it, but it's. I, I keep saying it, it's just so weird to me how the film just does this. If I didn't know what this was and it did this, I'd be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it is. Can you think of a bigger tonal shift, really? I mean, obviously in good films, but anything that tries this, that's not
In a
like audition or something. Like,
I didn't see it, but do you remember that movie? You, of course not. It was with Matthew McConaughey. It was directed by Stephen Knight, and it was called Serenity. I had to look up like a spoiler review of it. I've not seen it, where it was like this weird island rom-com, and then it turned out it was the kid role-playing murdering his father in a video game.
oh, what? No.
Yeah, that was like the book of Henry of that year. The kind of what?
Oh,
Another film I didn't
yes.
see.
Oh my god, I never thought this is such a The Book of Henry. Holy shit. Like,
Have you actually seen the Book of Henry?
I have seen that film, yes. Like,
The movie that killed Colin Trevorrow's career.
oh yeah, because Jesus Christ. I never thought to equate the two, but this is the extreme version of The Book of Henry.
Oh god. Yeah, I mean that's probably in modern cinema the most famous example of like a weird tonal shift in a bad film. Because okay, like in a good film, right? Parasite. Parasite has like two weird tonal shifts. Parasite turns into nearly a horror movie at one point, but Bong Joon-ho holds it together by the Bong Joon-ho magic.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
So like we talked about. In fact, actually, before we get on to that, there's another little tidbit I learned from the interview I was reading, where he was asked if it's R-rated or not rated, and he said they sent it to the MPAA for submission, and they sent it back with a note saying, "Just pretend you didn't send this us." I thought that was quite funny.
Oh my god, really?
It's banned in New Zealand for objectionable content.
Oh wow. I mean, I guess makes sense
I can
at
see
the
it.
ending. Yeah, yeah. That's why it's classed as an extreme film. But like,
It's never been released here. I couldn't see it getting cuts, but it would be an 18 here, like no bones about it.
Oh, yeah, instantly being 18. Yeah, yeah.
Which, as we said, is just funny because who over like? Do you remember that film that came out, Project X? Not the monkey one, the one about the big party that was 18
Yes.
rated, but no one in
party.
their right mind over 18 would see that. It's like that.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's like, if this came out in the cinema, it'd have to be adults going to watch it in a cinema. Like,
God, you work in a cinema. Can you imagine everyone you'd have to turn away from that?
yeah, exactly. It's already bad enough. So,
So yeah, I think the next thing I just want to mention is that I found out about this film initially because YMS, famous online critic, did a review of it, and my reaction after watching it is he makes it seem a lot worse than it is, frankly, because it is just, I don't consider him bad faith criticism, but he is just chopping the worst bits up and putting sort of music in it. Right, I guess it's time for final thoughts then. Dom, what are your final thoughts on Megan is Missing?
I mean, after talking with you, I don't think I hate it as much anymore. um, Obviously, still think it's a terrible movie with terrible acting, and like, most of it just doesn't work, but does have some redeemable tidbits in there, and kind of should um maybe be
Yeah,
watched.
I basically agree. It's a bad movie. It's a very bad film, but it's not the half star 1 out of 10 that it's kind of got its reputation to be. And to be honest, this is what I was thinking after it finished. I'd sit through this again over sitting through Tenet again.
Oh wow, controversial.
Is this a compliment to this, or is this just a real insult to Tenet?
I think it's an insult to Tenet, if you ask me.
That was more boring than this was.
Okay,
And
Sterny.
this yeah. What
Do you want
are we
to-
doing next week?
Do you want to announce it?
Sure.
You can announce this
we're
one.
Doing Wes Craven's Last House on the Left.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening, everyone. I hope the ending doesn't sound too choppy because we've just had 5 minutes of technical difficulties, but we'll see you next time, I guess. Bye. You've been listening to the Extreme Cinema Podcast with Alexander Sternberg and Dom Loach. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider subscribing as it really helps us out. The original artwork for the podcast was done by George Arnold. The Extreme Cinema Podcast, available where all good podcasts are available.